Hello, good evening, and welcome to Unplanned short podcasty thing. So, first of all, if you're watching this either live or in replay, you're very welcome to the stream. I know there's always a delay, unfortunately, with YouTube, so that means that between me starting this and it actually kicking in, there's this irritating lapse, but nonetheless, it is what it is. So I wanted to just briefly have a quick chat with you about the all-important issue of lockdown. And as we all know, today has seen the government announce the new tier system. And I think that new tier system may have actually brought about some actual tiers. So hello to Matrix, hello to my friend Chris. Good to see you guys on the stream. And Consuelo, nice to see you. And Peter, I am live now. Yes, I am actually here in person. I'm just doing this by audio, just in terms of protecting bandwidth. But I wanted to talk to you about this because I thought it'd be interesting for us, because it's just me and you tonight. There's nobody else with me. I wanted to show you something, actually, folks, just to start with. So as you join, do you remember this? Do you remember Boris telling us back in earlier in November, the England lockdown will end on the 2nd of December? Boris Johnson insists. Yes, folks, Boris told the cabinet, now those ever so smart people that sit around the table with him, he told them back in early November that the second lockdown, which he reluctantly had to impose, would end on the 2nd of December. Oh, thanks very much, Chris, for your comments regarding last night's debate. This was on the other channel I host, Open Dialogus, where we had actually James Dellingpole, Godfrey Bloom, and Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen. Don't know if you saw that one, folks. But it was good fun. Hello, Pookie. Nice to see you on the stream, by the way. So yeah, you'll all remember Boris, and hello to you, Andrew, as well. Boris telling us that it was going to end on the 2nd of December. Now then, did you believe him? Did you think, yes, this is a guy that we can absolutely have confidence in? And when Boris says it's going to end on the 20th or the 2nd of December, it's going to end on the 2nd of December, because you will recall that he told us that back in March we had 3 weeks to flatten the curve. Remember that classic? Did you believe it? Do you remember in July when he told us there wouldn't be a second lockdown? Do you remember that classic? And then at the beginning of November, when reluctantly he had to impose a full national lockdown, having had a tier lockdown, did you believe him that it was going to close on it was going to come to an end? Nah, of course it wasn't. Let me share this with you folks. Just put this one up. Wanted to get your your opinion in this one. So this is quite a nice graphic. So this is after today's tier structure has been introduced. I wanted to show you before and after. So, and actually, I see, Kim, some really interesting comments. I'm going to come to your comments in a second, but just broadly speaking, up until the 2nd of December, 42% of the country were in tier 1. That's the least restrictive regulations. From the 3rd of December, it's 1%. Say what? Yeah, that's right. It goes from 42% to 1%, which is fundamentally, I think, the Isle of Wight, the Isle of Scilly, the Isles of Scilly, and Cornwall. I think everywhere else. Well, you can see where everywhere else is. So you see, in tier 2, folks, has gone up from 43% to 57%. And then tier 2, and then tier 3, which is the worst one. Tier 3 is business destroying. It goes from 15% of the country to 42%. Yeah, Boris, that sounds so good, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, Chris says pubs are not going to open in the north of England till at least Easter. But my question would be, Chris, do you think that pubs in the north of England can survive until Easter. Kim makes a point here. Kim says, my town, excuse me, Medway, has gone into tier 3. And Kim makes my point, and I'm sure Chris probably agrees, half the pubs in town will be gone by the new year. This is, of course, and we'll talk about this. This is absolutely inevitable and absolutely predictable. Now, I did as Chris references, I did discuss this with Andrew Bridgen, a Conservative MP, one of the Brexit, the Spartan Brexiteers. He basically felt that, yes, it's very, very regrettable, but there's no option. Well, yeah, there's no option if you want to destroy the economy. And the Matrix makes a really good point. Small Indigenous businesses are the targets and will be amongst the casualties. There is no doubt about that small Indigenous businesses are being absolutely targeted. And so by what I've put up on the screen happening, you can see that from having 57% of the 57%, get my figures right. Yeah, 57% of the country were in tier 2, tier 3 lockdown up until the 2nd of December. That moves up from 57% to, that's right, 99%. Do you see what they're doing? Who believes this? Who believes Boris has got our best intentions at heart? He absolutely does not. This government is fundamentally decimating chunks of the economy, and in particular, what I would call the social parts of the economy. So going out with your mates or friends or family for a drink to the pub, going out for a nice meal, those are the parts of the economy that are being demolished. And let's just call it what it is. They're being demolished. This is exactly what the government is doing. So if you cut down human interaction, well, that's got certain inevitable consequences, doesn't it? Keep people locked up at home. In fact, this is something Boris said, and I don't know if you saw it. I did put it up on one of my many posts where Boris is basically saying, look, folks, if you behave yourselves at Christmas, you can't escape these tears. But here's my point. If you're having to escape something, that means you're in prison. And of course, I know you folks on the stream get that. We are captive. We are being held captive by this government. That's the hard reality. That's why I've put up this hashtag lockdown without end, because there's not going to be an end to this one, folks, unless people actually do something about it. I mean, this is where I stand on it. If I can show you this, just bring up this little image. And it's this: your obedience is prolonging this nightmare. The longer you comply, the longer you obey, the longer the nightmare. Now, of course, I'm careful to make it clear, I'm not suggesting anyone breaks the law, not for 1 second, but I am suggesting that people should make their displeasure known to those in power. They should voice their displeasure in every way possible. They should lobby their MPs, people in influence, people in power. This is what needs to happen. I actually tuned into talk radio this afternoon, and it was palpable, the anger of people who, one chap I heard on the radio, and he was saying he'd followed the government's advice from March. And now I think he lived down in Kent, and he felt well and truly shafted on the back of it. I don't blame him actually for one moment. But hello to my open dialogus friends. Nice to see you on the stream. So he felt entirely betrayed by government. And his view, he was angry, you could tell it. And caller after caller were angry at government. And this is good news, because as Mark says, and I agree with Mark here, this ends when people realize it's not meant to end. You're absolutely right, Mark. That's the reality. Don't worry about not being able to share this. YouTube limits me anyway, so I'm relaxed about that. I will put this out on other platforms where I can be certain that there won't be an algorithm sitting over me restricting the growth of my channel. Don't have to worry about that. Jed, good to see you. Thank you. I'm good to see you on the stream. Don't miss. Yeah, people miss the alert. I mean, this is the games that YouTube play. I don't want to waste your time talking about YouTube. They're not worth a toss. What's Graham's point? Lockdown infection rates rise. Lockdown ends. Infection rates rise, back in lockdown. Infection rates rise, and so on and so on. Here's an interesting one, though, for you. Why has Liverpool, let me ask you this question, folks. Why has Liverpool today not found itself back in Tier 3? You will recall that in Liverpool, it was seen as gosh, it's a major source of the COVID, the old Rona. Then the strangest thing of all, we've seen it actually reduced from Tier 3 to Tier 2 today. Why was that? Well, Matt Hancock and the boys are telling you that, well, this is because of the good behaviour of people in Liverpool and also all the sterling work that was done by the authorities. Well, what was the sterling work done in Liverpool? I'll tell you. In Liverpool, around about 100,000 people were tested this month using a new form of test called the lateral flow test. Lateral flow test, right? Now, this is totally different from the PCR test. The army were able to actually deliver this test and get a result back in an hour. Here's the killer thing. The killer stat is this. The level of infection from the 100,000 people was at about 0.8%. Okay? 0.8% infection using the lateral flow test. 0.8% infection is pretty much in line with what the false positive rate is, which the government has stated is between 0.8 and 3%. So if you operate at 0.8% being false positives, and if you're saying, well, there's a total of 0.8% infections, what that means is, putting it bluntly, the level of infection in Liverpool is pretty much zero or very close to it. So this is one of the things that the media, of course, won't talk about. They won't talk about why Liverpool is so special, but it's fundamentally because the PCR test wasn't used to the scale that it's being used everywhere else. One of my suggestions is we need to scrap the PCR test, right? Get rid of the PCR test for COVID and deploy this newer test, which gives a much greater accurate measurement of infection or alleged infection. However, Mark makes a good point here. He says, well, Liverpool is at the exact same R rate as Sheffield, but Liverpool is in Tier 2 and Sheffield in Tier 3. Yeah, Mark, you're right. I mean, what's the logic behind that? There's none. Chris provides us with some good news. He says, well, to be fair, where I work in and around Blackburn, most people are just getting on with life. The roads are very busy and life is back to normal. I mean, that's good, Chris, in as far as it goes. And of course, I welcome that. But the reality is there will be businesses in Blackburn and in every other Tier 2 and Tier 3 area which are going to be badly affected. And I know we focus on pubs a lot. And I speak as someone, I'm not in pubs very much, but at this grand old age. But the notion that a pub can open if it serves what's the terminology? An extensive meal. I can't remember the exact words, but there's a terminology around the amount of food that must be served with drink in a pub. Well, my simple question to you is, explain the science behind that. Does the COVID virus realize, oh, these people are at this table are having fish and chips? That means I can't go near that table. But God forbid if they were just sitting having a pint or a glass of wine or whatever, then they would be immediately assaulted by the virus. So, thanks, Craig. It's a substantial meal. And Pookie, thanks for clarifying that. Couldn't remember. But yeah, so how on earth is there any science behind this? Who thinks these things up? What clown squad contrive these bizarre rules? I mean, this is my major problem. And somebody says we need a national militia to get control of our country again. Well, certainly, so much liberty is being taken away, and the science behind it is at best tenuous, and in some aspects extremely suspect. And I think we're allowed to question it. Chris also points out he's going to go to Tenerife next week for a week in the sun. Well, good for you, Chris. And if you do, send me a virtual postcard from. Although I'm not sure what life's like in Tenerife. One of my issues is if you go abroad and you're required to wear masks and you're still going to be treated like a leper, I'm not sure what the fun in that. Apart from getting sun, which is, of course, something we should all be getting because it's good for us. Kim says these people are control freaks. Of course, you're dead right, Kim. No argument from me in that. Andy says, what is the crime rate in Liverpool now with weeks of lockdown? I have no idea, Andy. Graham suggests the vitriol from some people to those who are trying to live a normal life as they should be is shameful. Yeah, you see, this is one of the things that I have discussed with others on a lot of my live streams. There's a very successful divide and conquer strategy in place. I don't wish to judge those who wear masks and who comply. That's their prerogative. I respect that. I don't agree with it, but I respect it. But they must respect my view. However, that's not how it's going to work out. And actually last night on the Open Dialogus stream, we had, Andrew Bridgen, he was a very nice chap, and I really enjoyed talking to him. But, I mean, he was sort of saying, well, look, Boris has said, for example, the vaccine's not going to be compulsory. It won't be compulsory. And I said, yeah, but it doesn't need to be compulsory, Andrew. You're not going to be allowed to travel. You're not going to be allowed to go to sporting events. And indeed, you may not be able to even go to a restaurant unless you can demonstrate that you've had the vaccine. So the truth of the matter is that it becomes de facto mandatory, if not de jure mandatory, if you understand the difference. So it is essentially something you have to have. Now, that feels like tyranny to me. I don't know what you people think about it, but that seems to tyranny, like tyranny. Chris says James Dallingpole absolutely roasted him. I thought actually, Chris, that Andrew was there trying to put the position of the government. So he's in the Conservative Party. So he's going to put his party's position. But I think it's untenable. And I don't think the... what's this? Daniel, Open Dialogue just says, plug it. Well, this is, by the way, I will actually plug this. Do make sure that if you subscribe to my YouTube, that you also subscribe to the Open Dialogus YouTube channel. Because every week, I'm on that. We've got some great guests on, and I'm sure anyone who's tuned in to some of the conversations will tell you that it's much better than the sort of crap you see on TV and elsewhere. So support Open Dialogus and the folks that are behind that. I'd like you to do that. No, somebody said, what's that? I just reading some of your comments here, folks. Right. Okay, Ben, this is the best comment of the night. In Russia, any drink under 10% proof is counted as food. So maybe we should take a leaf out of their books. Yeah. So what we need to have, I'd like a nice glass of Merlot to be technically defined as food, in which case I can then go to the meal, go to the pub and have a substantial meal. One of the things that... all right, so some really positive feedback for Open Dialogus here. Chris says, everyone must go and watch it. It was a great debate, folks. So do look out for that. I'll put a link up on my Parler account after this, so you can go and watch it if you've enjoyed. I think you would enjoy it. Godfrey Bloom, very straight talking guy. And he made some really good points, actually, as well. James Dallingpole, absolute COVID skeptic. And Andrew Bridgen, putting the points of view of government. and me somewhere in between them, trying to hold the thing together so that it at least provides people with a chance to put their point of view. So Pookie says, is your survival rate going to be better than that of the virus? Well, I don't know about that, but did you see, that's another thing I wanted to let you see, actually. Yeah, this is a good thing about doing these things live, if I can. Yeah, let me just show you this. See, what do you think of this one, folks? I'm just going to put it right up there. So hang on, as I do this live and unplanned. It's just loading now. What do you think of this particular information that came out earlier today? Uh-oh. Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, the wonder vaccine that's going to save the world, faces growing scrutiny. Gosh, only a couple of days ago, I was off the impression it was going to save the world. Now, well, you see the headline anyway for what a lamestream media headline is worth, but it does seem that their share price dropped as questions started to be raised about the vaccine. Now, I did, in my discussion on Monday evening with Rebecca, my friend Rebecca Butler, discuss the fact that we really need to be careful about vaccines before we all jump on board the vaccine train. And the issue here is that for me, that whilst I'm not anti-vaccine as such, because I've had vaccines through my life for different things, vaccines have to be proven. They have to be made. The public needs to be informed about them. The public should have the choice not to take them. Healthy people in particular should have a right to decide if you don't want to take something and you're perfectly well, why the hell should you have to take it? I mean, to me, that's very, very reasonable. Jed says, has Rebecca seen the headline? Don't know. I would think she does. Rebecca does follow the news agenda pretty closely. I did speak with her earlier today, but we didn't touch on this. However, Rebecca has her views. I have my views. Tonight's about my views. So one of the points actually that Mark says, I just wanted to bring this one up. This is interesting. Mark says, I heard today only 339 people had died from the Rona with no other underlying health conditions. Do you know how accurate this is? I don't think that's the right figure, no. However, what I do know is this, and Godfrey Bloom brought it up on the Open Dialogus debate from last night. He said, and bearing in mind his vast experience working in the actuarial in business, you know, the whole thing about insuring people based on probabilities and so on and so forth. He said that around about, I think the number was, an Open Dialogist can correct me here, it's around about 1,700 people, Mark, have died off COVID this year. 1,700 or so. The number the media trots out, the 50,000 number or thereabouts, is a much more broader definition of death. And it's one that many of us have issues with. It puts it down to anyone who's died in the previous 28 days where COVID-19 is mentioned on the death certificate. But that means that they have died with COVID and not of COVID. And the difference between the two things could not be greater. So I'm sure you all understand that. So when you actually look at it, as Godfrey pointed out, in terms of this great plague, and only 1,400 people have actually died specifically of the great plague, that's not a big number at all. And yet, because of this number and because of the way the media has twisted it, we're being locked down again, thrown into tier 3s, which is essentially societal close down for the first few weeks of December. And does anybody believe, by the way, that when the next tiers come to an end, do you think that's going to be the end of it? Because if you do, I've got some land in outer Mongolia I want to sell you. There's no doubt in my mind that what the government intends to do is lock us down as close to Christmas as possible, give us poor plebs 4 or 5 days of so-called freedom, and then once you've had that behind you, the government will turn around and say, look, folks, We hope you enjoyed your Christmas, but the R rate is rising, and we just can't take any more chances. So welcome to 2021. Welcome to another lockdown. And I guarantee you that's exactly what's coming your way. And the government will keep doing this. And the reason they keep doing it is we let them. We obey. I actually heard, this is on the BBC, so take this with a pinch of salt. But I heard people on the BBC saying that they were concerned, two types of people. This has amazed me. People in the tier 1 areas, which there's only 1% of the country in tier 1, but they interviewed people from the Isles of Scilly or whatever, and they were annoyed about the fact that tier 1 meant that could mean that people might want to travel from tier 2 and tier 3 into their tier 1. And they were all upset about that because that means the Rona might be coming to visit them. What kind of attitude is that? I also heard people in tier 2 and tier 3, not necessarily, but has done one thing really well. They've used propaganda so successfully. People are scared so much. So somebody said, Chris says, a couple of questions. Do you think the Tory rebels will stand up? No, most of them will buckle. Most of them will buckle. Actually, Chris, it doesn't matter. Even if all the Tory rebels stood up, Labour will then save Boris's bacon. So, there's these restrictions, these new tiers will come in with legal force and nothing can stop it because Parliament is fundamentally in favour of lockdown. The only debate that they have is how much of lockdown. I see Billy Piper's teeth is furious. So I think a lot of people are furious today. A lot of people thought that Boris was sincere when he told them the lockdown would end on the 2nd of December. What they didn't understand was that the next lockdown would start on the 3rd of December. Fool me once, shaming you. Fool me twice, shaming me. Fool me 3 times? Seriously, when will people wise up? And that's fundamentally the issue here. We need people to realize that this is going to keep on going. That's why I've entitled this hashtag lockdown without end. I don't see any end in sight to any of this unless enough people basically make it plain to government, to their elected representatives, that they can't go on with this one. And so, yes, Kim, Agenda 21 rolls on. People say, oh, we don't want to get into the conspiracy theory area. And nor do I. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But nor do I believe in coincidences. I put that out in one of my streams today. And I'm sure you'll understand the point I'm trying to make there. Ozzy says, I'm working in a flat above a shop. The guy business is near to the wall. Yeah, I'm sure, Ozzy, loads of businesses will be near to the wall. I'm aware of a small business here in Northern Ireland who have been able to stay open during, amazingly, they've been able to be open during the last 4-week lockdown. But now, as we enter from tomorrow, what is going to be a new extended 2-week lockdown, they're going to be closed. So this is the insanity of it. We've got civil service bureaucrats inventing all kinds of the most stupid rules that I can conceive of. I don't understand the rationale behind them. There seems to be no logic to them, but they impose them. And Mark makes a very good point. If lockdowns worked, we wouldn't have needed a second one. You're absolutely right, Mark. The truth of the matter is that there's virtually no science to say that lockdowns work, but there's a lot of science, Mark, to show that lockdowns don't work. And I suggest, if you're not already doing that, you follow Ivor Cummings, who's produced some very good science-based insights in terms of the absolute folly of lockdowns. But this government's fallen down a rabbit hole. It's a lockdown rabbit hole, and they just keep going deeper and deeper into it. And they'll keep taking us with it. Craig says, the World Economic Forum is no conspiracy theory. You're absolutely right, it's not. And isn't it interesting? The World Economic Forum talks of build back better, and Boris talks of build back better, and Joe Biden thinks of build back better. And it's, again, I don't believe in coincidences. Do you? So this is the reality of where we are. It's going to keep going, folks. They have got us in captivity. They intend to keep us in captivity. As I suggested the other night, once the vaccine is made available, anyone who thinks they're going to be getting out of masks and getting out of social distancing is fooling themselves. Those measures will continue. This is fundamentally, this is a new, a reorganization of life, whether you like it or not. And I can see it that it may be that if you want to be able to go to your, go to see a football match, go to see a concert, or go on a holiday, then you're going to have to take the vaccine. I do see that. I resent it. And I was glad to see Qantas getting a real slap back on social media for their assertion that you wouldn't be able to fly Qantas unless you take the vaccine. But then again, if you wanted to fly Qantas, that's the terms of the game. This is what Andrew Bridgen said to me last night when we discussed this on the other live stream. He said to me, it wouldn't be government that imposes these vaccine restrictions. It would be corporations. And it's up to corporations to do what they want. Now, I think he's right, of course. Andrew is right in saying that, but it's also disingenuous because to a degree, the large corporations are playing up to what the governments want. However, of course, by the same token, in fairness to Qantas, there's no point in you getting on a flight in Heathrow to go to Melbourne. And at the London end, it's okay, but at the Melbourne end, it's not okay. So, it's difficult. All of this is very difficult. I will revert back to Billy here. Billy says, if I need a pint chip with every pint, then there's no way I'm going to be able to achieve the level of intoxication dictated by this ridiculous situation in a pub. Well, I think, Billy, the rule seems to be that you can have as long as you've got a bit of food in front of you. It could be just a bag of chips. You can have as much alcohol as you want. As long as, of course, if you have to get up to go to the loo, you put your mask on. This is the kind of bizarre rules that are being put in place. And we're being asked to believe that this is entirely reasonable. It's all science-based. And look, folks, you just gotta follow it. You've just got to trust Boris. You've just got to believe that the government has your best intentions at heart. Well, I don't. I'm sorry. I think the government has its own best intentions at heart, mind you. I think that, but they are two very different things. Final point in this one, really, I suppose, is that we're not too far away from December. December is a month when the hospitality industry across the UK makes its money. As you'll understand, hotels, having lots of people staying over for company Christmas dinners, all that kind of stuff, that's all pretty much gone by the by. And so the consequences of what we're now about to go through in England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland will mean, as Rishi Sunak made clear the other day, that there's going to be at least 2.5 million people unemployed by the time we get to the spring. Those unemployed people won't be public sector workers. They won't be politicians. They will be ordinary small businessmen and women and those who they employ. And that's where my sympathies lie. I think that those people deserve so much better. And it is, the tier, Simon sums it up actually. He says, Tier 3 is a new name for lockdown. Exactly. And lockdown is just another name for tyranny, Simon. And that's, in my opinion, the area that we've now entered under the guidance of Boris Johnson, Matt Hancock, and co. Can I ask those of you in the stream one simple question before I go? How many of you think that once we've got through this new tiered lockdown, the other side of Christmas, you're going to get out of lockdown? Who thinks that lockdowns will end with 2020? Yes or no? Do you think they're going to end, or do you think they're going to continue? Question for you. And as you type your answers in, Chris says, "Are you in lockdown in Northern Ireland?" Yeah, I am. We are in lockdown from tomorrow, Chris, from tomorrow, which is, profoundly dispiriting and profoundly unhelpful. Well, there we go. I see your answers coming in. Yeah, don't I? Okay, guys, I understand. Yep. Nobody thinks, look, this is going to be the end of lockdowns. In fact, actually, I think it's just the start of lockdowns, because government has managed to convince people that government knows what it's doing. I don't necessarily think government does know what it's doing, but what it is doing is not in your best interests or mine, not in the best interests of Britain's small landlords, small restaurateurs, those running coffee shops, those basically anyone outside Chris, the mega corporations. Chris says, "What's the R rate and death rate in Northern Ireland?" Don't know. I don't have any confidence in the R rate, and as for death rate, trying to get statistical data is quite difficult for here, Chris, and deliberately so. Brian makes a point, actually. We are told over and over again, having coronavirus and recovering does not mean you are not immune to the virus. Yet having a vaccine which mimics it is 90% effective. Well, that's right. Yeah, Brian. I mean, that's a good point, actually. There's so much we're being told. And for me, the biggest problem is you're being given all this information through the legacy media. The legacy media is cancer. It's poison. It's toxic. It's misleading. It deliberately propagandizes. So that's the problem that we have. And that's why we need, I suppose, if I'm being honest about it, channels like Alt News Media here on YouTube with myself, and channels like Open Dialogus and others who are trying to bring you broader insights, the sort of insights that are too frequently cancelled in the legacy media, the sort of insights like James Delingpole the other night. I mean, when was the last time you seen Delingpole on mainstream TV? I mean, his appearances are probably not much more frequent than mine used to be. And so the people, Peter says, do you follow Mark Watson on Twitter? Well, of course, Peter, I'm not on Twitter anymore. So I don't. I'm very glad not to be on Twitter, by the way. It's a toxic platform in so many ways, not least if we look at what's happening across the pond and the Trump legal team and their attempts to get justice in certain of the individual states. When you look at what Twitter's doing there, it's pretty appalling. Yes, I should also point out, Matrix says, Unity News Network is a good lively Damesdale live stream. Yeah, please follow Unity Network as well. They're good guys. And also, by the way, I should point out to you that if you follow Hearts of Oak, and I think some of you do follow Hearts of Oak, they're having a live event on Saturday. And I will be speaking at midday live to those who sign up to the Hearts of Oak event. So if you please, again, I'll put the link up on my Parler account. But if you want to tune in, there's lots of great speakers. Anne-Marie Waters is speaking. I'm speaking. I'm not sure of some of the other names, but Chris has got his ticket. There's definitely that's going to be a good debate. And on Saturday, I'll not be holding back. It is time to speak truth. So that's why all of us guys, be it Hearts of Oak, be it Unity News Network, be it Open Dialogus, be it Alt News Media, we all have to stand together and do our best to help get truth and knowledge out there so you guys can make up your minds. But at least you're being given different opinions. That's why it's so important to me that we keep the Alt News Media channel operating, So I do hope that, as I said, you do make sure you subscribe to this, my channel on YouTube. Make sure you hit the bell as well so that as you get notifications. YouTube don't want you to know when I'm live. I'm well aware of that. YouTube do strangle my I'm just seeing some of the comments here. I'm always distracted by your comments. Henry Kissinger said, once the herd accepts mandatory forcible vaccination, it's game over. We thin out the herd and the herd pays us for providing extermination services. Did he? I mean, that sounds a strange one, that one, actually. That's a bit like, Henry II once said, I really don't like color TV. I'm not sure about that. So T-Beth says, have you heard the anti-vax song? It's called Bill Gates is a blah, blah, blah. I haven't heard those things, no. But I tell you what, in all these times, and it's very stressful times for so many of us, it's important to keep a sense of humor. I try to keep my sense of humor. Simon comes out with a cracker comment. A mask is as useless as our government. Problem is, the government lasts longer than a mask, Simon. That's the problem we've got actually in this one. So look, folks, that's about it from me. As I said, I just wanted to hop on because, the fact that Boris has done this today should make Middle England waken up. The sheep should waken up. This additional introduction of tiers, it bodes very, very badly for Britain in December, which is, as I say, such an important month. And I feel sorry for those households who are going to be denied income and who may lose jobs. Those are the people I'm thinking about. And, if you support that view, then all I would simply say is please share this if you can. Please subscribe to my channels. Please support Alt News Media in what we're doing. Craig actually brings up Dan Bongino is great on Rumble. Actually, Craig, I've got a Rumble channel as well. It's Vance1. If you go Vance1 on Rumble, yeah, I know it's not the greatest name ever, but I'm getting greater traction over there than I am on YouTube. Would you believe that? So I've been on YouTube for 10 years, and I've been on Rumble for 6 weeks. And I'm getting much better traction on Rumble than YouTube. Why might that be? Sorry, Silicon Valley tyranny, but there's new channels coming along. Parler's one, Rumble's another, and there's obviously Gab as well. There are other channels coming, and they will break the stranglehold of Silicon Valley big tech, and I can't wait for that to happen. So I'm glad you're on Rumble, Simon. The thing about Rumble, I can do a short video, put it out in Rumble. I don't have to censor what I say, although I'm always pretty much saying the same stuff. But if I say certain things here on YouTube, it triggers them, as you know. So you're right. You're absolutely right, Ozzy. I know that YouTubers shadow banning me. I understand that. That's why actually, sometimes I do these more or less just to chat directly with you guys. But I can also do a video, put it up in Rumble, and hopefully you will all follow me on Rumble. So if you're not, please do that, because there you'll get the unexpurgated views. Okay, you get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Here on YouTube, we have to, unfortunately, be a little bit careful. So my handle on Rumble is Chris. It's d.vance1. Sorry, not D, just dvance1. Dvance1. Check it out. I've got about almost 500 followers over there in the space of a very short period of time. So I'm really pleased that Chris, very keen to build my Rumble channel, because I can get you stuff there which I think will be more of an edge than the sort of stuff that we put here. So look, thanks for sticking with me anyway. And, I look forward, by the way, Graham Lees, to having massive bonfires of masks and other useless garbage that the government has imposed on the British people without any particular scientific benefits. I think, as I said, Ivor Cummings is linked to 22 scientific studies showing that lockdowns don't work, and I'm not sure what benefit masks have. By the way, I'm still not wearing a mask. FYI, will I wear a mask? No. So I'm afraid the British Bulldog still lives, but there needs to be many more of us, and we need to make sure that we don't bow down and capitulate. So, look, folks, that's it for me. Thanks very much for spending these 45 minutes with me tonight. And as I say, thanks, by the way, Chris, for following me in Rumble. You'll definitely see more stuff over there. And in the meantime, wish you all a good night. Enjoy your remaining hours of being in Boris's second lockdown before you tumble into Boris's third lockdown tomorrow morning. In the meantime, look after each other, and thanks again, and speak with you real soon. Bye for now.